thanks to Charlotte for her message. If you're journeying towards faith, if you have further questions, if you'd like to speak to someone about Jesus and how he can make a difference in your life, then we would love for you to get in touch with us. You can email us at info@elimchurchireland.com. You can also have a look at the further resources that are available on www.elimchurchireland.com/words of hope. The links will be in the description. It's also my privilege to say that Words of Hope is taking on a new form, but it will continue in the month of June. It will be on Monday nights at 8 p.m. and it's taking on a slightly different look. It's going to be called Words of Hope Mental Health Conversations, where there will be mental health professionals, pastors and people who have journeyed through certain things will be discussing and looking at certain issues pertaining to mental health. We would love for you to tune in and for you to share and for you to connect with that. Next week on the 8th of June, we'll be talking about stress and how stress impacts our mental health. If you have any questions that you would like answered by our panel, we would love you to get in touch. Again, email us at the same email, info@elimchurchireland.com, or simply put a message through Messenger on Facebook or our social media platforms, and we will do our best to include as many of those questions in the Q&A as possible. So that's next Monday from 8 p.m. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we really do hope that you can hang around for the Q&A so that we can delve a little bit deeper into this topic, fear in lockdown. God bless. So thank you, Charlotte, for your talk. I'm sure that so many people have found that not just practical, but really helpful. And really in this Q&A, what we hope to do is give an opportunity to delve a little bit deeper into the subject of fear and even to touch a little bit on mental health. We're also joined by Pastor Davy Beckett. So let's just take a moment and have the guys introduce themselves.
So I'm Charlotte, and I'm married to Drew. I have two boys, Caden, who is 11, and Eli, who is 9. And I am a teaching and discipleship pastor at CFC Church in Belfast.
I'm Davy Beckett. I'm a pastor in Bangrenham Church. I'm married to Fiona. I have 3 boys, Peter, Timothy and Stephen. 3 beautiful daughter-in-laws, one to be a daughter-in-law actually, and then 3 fantastic grandkids and a granddog. And I've been in Bangrenham 32 years as a pastor there.
Brilliant, Davy and Charlotte. Thank you. Well, thanks so much, guys, for taking the time to join us and to put yourselves in the hot seat and answer some questions. We really do appreciate that. And we do believe that it'll be of help, because there will be some people, whether it's people of faith or people who are on a journey towards faith, who will be struggling with some of the issues that we're about to talk about. And we really want to provide them with some help. Charlotte, first of all, in your talk, you alluded to some struggles that you've journeyed through. Would you be up for sharing some of your story with us?
Yeah, for sure. So in the talk, we were talking about fear and anxiety, and I suppose really my journey with fear and anxiety has been an extremely long one. Whenever I look back now at my childhood, I can see that I was probably unnaturally afraid of a lot of things that other kids wouldn't even have thought about, you know, like things like when we were walking around the shop, I would have been adding up everything that my mum was putting in the basket because I was terrified she wouldn't have enough money, even though that never happened. I was just afraid of everything. And so that kind of became the atmosphere of my life, I suppose. And I realize now, looking back, that what happened really was fear became this voice that I became really accustomed to. It became one that I started to trust. And the thing about fear is, and that kind of voice and the thoughts around fear is, fear sounds like your friend, because it sounds like it's trying to protect you from things. So, you know, I would have had a lot of thoughts like, oh, don't try that, you might fail, or don't go there, something bad might happen, or don't do this, something might this. And so you began to think that these thoughts were protective thoughts and really good, helpful thoughts. And so even though I was a Christian from I was a little girl, I realize now, looking back, that the voice of God directing me became much quieter in my own mind than this voice of fear. And actually fear became the dictatorial voice in my life. And I started to obey whatever fear said to me. And I thought that it was my friend, and really what happened was it was hemming me in little by little and taking more and more of my life. And the more that I gave to it, the more that it took. And I remember getting to this moment in my life where in my early 20s, I wasn't long married. I had got to the stage where I was afraid the vast majority of the day. I couldn't sleep at night. I would wake up, screaming sometimes. My heart would be racing. I wouldn't be able to eat. I would maybe have a wee window of time between about 5:30 and 6:30 at night where I felt okay. And apart from that, I just struggled the whole time with this paralyzing fear. And yet it had become my normal. I just thought, this is just the way life is. This is just my personality. This is just who I am. So I know other people aren't like this, but this is just who I am. And then there was this one day where my sister, who I love, phoned and said, do you want to come round to our house for, tea or something? And I loved her house. Like, it was my favorite place in the world to be. And yet I was terrified to go. And that was my moment. Sounds so small, but that was my wake up moment where I was like, hold on a minute. This cannot be normal. And this cannot be okay. Actually, I can't live like this. And I suppose I got a moment where I glimpsed into my future and thought, what happens if I keep giving more to fear? Like, where does this end up? Where does this road lead? And that became my pivot point. And really that started my journey of not accepting that had to be my story. And my journey to recovery really came from that point. So that was my story.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. And Davey, you have journeyed a bit of this road as well. Would you be happy enough just to tell the folks a little bit about your journey?
100%. I was trying to work it out how long ago it was what really happened to me. About 10 years ago, almost, because I remember from my granddaughter being born. And really it was a whole list of things, with being just pressure and being in the ministry. People can be a pain, as you know. They can be a blessing, but they can be a pain. And there was a lot of stress, a lot of hassle. And being a bloke, I didn't know where to turn or who to go to. And I knew there was signs, like Charlotte had said in her talk, I wasn't sleeping, I wasn't eating properly. I liked the train and stuff, and it was even going, by the way. So things were going bad in my life, in a way. But I didn't really know what to do. I really didn't. And I wouldn't admit to it. That's the thing for me. I wouldn't admit that I was under pressure. So I kept saying yes to everything as usual. And as a pastor, you'll know that yourself. You say yes when you really should say no. But I just kept going. And I remember the day, right down to the second when it happened. And I explained it to people. It was like an elastic band snapped in my head. It was the pressure came and came. It was like times when I was coming up to preach in the church and I was so anxious. And that's not me. I'm a people person. I like to be with people. But I couldn't face people, but I had to. So I forced my way and kept going. But I remember going to watch, I was with my dad, and we went to see the Blues and the Clans. And anybody who knows me knows that I love sport and I love football. And I went to the match and I was sitting in the stand and I said to my dad, I need to get out of here. And I thought, there's something wrong with me here. Now the Clans were winning 2-0, so that made me depressed to start with. But I was really under pressure. And I just sat there, and this, as Charlotte has said there, a fear that was sort of, you can't explain it unless you've experienced it. And the Blues actually came back and scored 3, and we're winning 1-3-2. And most of that would be, I'd be hugging people and kissing people and high-fiving, and I just wanted out of there. I remember driving home, straight in, I don't even know how I drove home, going up in the bedroom, and I didn't come out of my bed for days. I just wanted to hide. And that fear of hearing the bell ring, hearing the doorbell, even with my family coming, it was so tangible, it was real, it was like a dark hole. And I've had other sicknesses in my life, but nothing as bad as that. It wasn't just some people think they're depressed when they're down and getting the blues or having a bad day, but that was something else. This was really a time where I was afraid of my own shadow. I really was, and that's not me. And that's where I really, and in that then I had to seek help, and hopefully I'll be able to help others. So I can come from it not just as someone who can sympathise, but I can empathise. I know the stages, I know where people are coming from. And I think that has helped me to help other people, and hopefully I'll be able to help people even tonight as we discuss.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys. And even as you have said there, Davey, really thank you for your openness, Charlotte and Davey, because there will be people who'll be watching and they'll just be saying, that's me, that's where I'm at, or I'm on the road to that. And what they're listening to is two guys who have walked that road, not two theorists, but two guys who have walked it. And we know that makes a big difference. whenever we're communicating to people. So thank you so much for that. A simple question, but maybe not simple answer. What helped you guys get through?
To be honest, it was a long process, and it was a lot of different things for me. There was, it was, I suppose I was praying. My first protocol was a call on God. And to be honest, it sounded as if he wasn't listening to me, because I was stuck in this hole, and I'm thinking, why am I here? I've a church, I've got family, I've got all these things to do. And why is this happening to me? And that was my first protocol. And honestly, I was at such a stage I couldn't do much for myself. But in my prayer, I have a wee room where I'm in now, and I would go in here, and to be honest, I would have cried and just cried to God, help me. And I didn't think anything was happening, I really didn't. But unbeknown to me, and I suppose looking back, it's hindsight, God was actually opening up doors through medical people, through people that came in contact with. As I said, some people were so helpful to me, and they were God ordained. I attended the PNU units in ARDS, and the folks that are there are not allowed to talk about Christianity, but God had set up a girl and then a guy from Africa, and they both opened up and they were Christians. So everything was sort of happening, but at the time I didn't think of it. So it was through medicine, through miracles, through good counsel. And that's why I said, some people talk to you and you're better being deaf, to be honest, and not listen to them. There's the people that say, pull yourself together, you need a good kick up the backside, all this rhetoric, and you can't even find yourself. But I think it was coming to God in my prayer, thinking nothing's happening. We're just singing tonight that the Waymaker, even when you think nothing's happening, God was working, and God was opening up the avenues and bringing people into my life that were helping me. That was the start of it.
I would say for me, key, like you, Davey, there's so many things. It's not one thing. And also I would say recovery from something like this is not linear. It's not like it always goes up. There have been times where it goes up and down and up and down, up and down, and you kind of wiggle your way out of it, little by little. But I would say for me, there had to come a pivot point, because mine was so prolonged, my journey with anxiety and fear, because it had been decades, and it had been so subtle. There had to come for me a point where I said enough is enough. Like, there has to be something better than this. And I had to really want something better, because actually journeying out of prolonged fear and anxiety is a hard road, and it takes effort, and it takes some energy, and it is hard work. And so there had to come a point where I just thought, I can't, this cannot be my life. I needed a pivot point. And then at that pivot point, I remember thinking, I don't know what to do here. Like, now that I've got this pivot point, what on earth do I do? And I did the only thing I knew to do. I phoned our pastor, which is why you guys always get phoned. I phoned our pastor. He at the time was Edwin Michael, and he had been my youth pastor growing up, and I really trusted him. And Drew and I, we were married at the time. I phoned him, he came round. And you know what? It's not like he had answers, but he sat and he listened and he cared, and he didn't make me feel like an idiot for feeling the way that I felt. And I would just say also to people like pastors, counselors, trusted friends who sit with people who have anxiety and feel like, I don't know how to help. See your presence in that moment. You don't understand how important that is and how valuable that is. And Edwin sitting that day and just allowing me to speak and validating what I had to say, that was massively helpful for me. So I would say having trusted people, because he was the first of many that I then invited into the journey, trusted people to walk alongside you, to pray for you when you can't even pray for yourself and you don't even have words. And I would say another thing that's been really pivotal in my journey is truth. Truth has been a key for me, because a lot of my fear and anxiety was just built on pure downright lies that I had believed over the years. And so I had to go through a very long process of examining mindsets and rejecting anything that I had believed that was a lie, and rebuilding foundations of truth in my life. And I'd say those two things probably have been very key for me in my journey, alongside lots of other stuff too, but they've been key in my journey back out of anxiety.
Yeah, brilliant, guys. Thank you so much. And of course, there's so much in there that time doesn't allow us to really unpack some of it. What I would love us to do is to go back to your talk, Charlotte. In your talk, I love the illustration that you said. Many of us view ourselves as pots, but actually we're more like a pipeline. Could you explain that a little bit further and help those who are listening maybe understand how we're so interconnected?
Yeah, I think there's a human tendency to try to compartmentalize something that's connected. And it's daft, but we don't realize it's daft. So for example, if you came here tonight to this Zoom call with a cup and there was very clearly a hole in the left hand side of the cup, and you said, oh no, it's fine, sure, the right hand side of the cup's grand, I'd be like, wise up, Alistair, don't be putting your tea in that cup. Like, because it's connected. So it doesn't matter if one side of it's fine. If the other side's broken, the whole thing's broken. And I think sometimes all of us have this way of compartmentalizing our life and looking at our mental health, our physical health, our spiritual health, our emotional health, like they're all separate things, and they're just not. They're all part of one cup. So if one part of it's broken, it affects the entire system. And really what I would say is we all need to be really careful, because what happens is, for all of us, I think we have a tendency to look after certain parts of that. So some of us are really great at looking after our spiritual health, but honestly, we never think about our physical health. And that apparently is okay to us. Or we're really great at thinking about our mental health, but we would never think about our spiritual health. And we, as human beings, if we are meant to flourish and do well, we need to be able to look at all of those areas and make sure we're healthy across all of them. And so my advice would be to anybody is to ask yourself the really simple question, which part of my health do I focus on? And I'm really good at looking after that bit, but actually this bit over here I've completely ignored, as if it doesn't matter. Because getting back to a more connected way of looking at the human health and wellness, I think, is essential moving forward for all of us.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So we're connected. We're connected physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And we'll get to some of those in a moment. But maybe you guys could give us one tip for people in regards, how can we improve people who are struggling? How can they help themselves physically?
Physically? Well, they say you have to burn up your adrenaline, because that's what's causing all the pressure. So they said, go for a walk if you're allowed out with social isolation, or do something that actually makes you sweat. As I said, I trained all the time, but I got a bike in the house, a static bike, and they said 20 minutes. Now at the beginning, 20 minutes was like a marathon, but I did 2 minutes and then I built it up. But it was just that doing something to try to burn the adrenaline up, and that then brought a bit of a peace in the anxiety side of it for me anyway.
Yeah, I would say you have to think about your natural physical responses. So whenever you're struggling with fear or anxiety, you're so exhausted with the battle of it that you tend to all kinds of comfort things, and your natural response can be to, lift the sugariest caffeine-filled stuff, or to just lie down in a dark room when you need to physically exercise, or you need to put some healthy things in your body. So I would just say you need to rewire. You need to work really hard at thinking, what's the one thing I can do physically for myself, for my physical well-being? And let's start with that and work on it until it becomes a natural response, so that when I'm anxious, I don't run to the dark room. Now when I'm anxious, I run to the exercise bike, or whatever that is in Davy's case, and you're reprogramming your response so that even when you're afraid and anxious and your body's all over the place and your mind's all over the place, your natural response is a good one. I think you need to retrain some of those physical responses just.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. I've also heard it said that for many of us, the biggest battle that we'll ever face is the one between the ears, and it's the battle of the mind. Charlotte, you mentioned the battle of the thought life and your thought life within your talk, and you talked about worst case scenario thinking. How can we win the battle of the mind?
Yeah, I think one of the most helpful phrases I ever heard around this was, don't believe everything you think. And so I think sometimes when a thought comes into our mind, we just assume it's truth. And what we need to learn how to do is to interrogate our own thoughts to figure out if they're true or not, and to cross-examine them and ask ourselves, are they true? Especially with thoughts that are very robust, have been in our lives a long time, or very overgeneralized. So for example, if you walk into a room and presume everybody hates you, and that's just the way you always feel, I bet you they think I'm a tube, I bet you they hate me, and that has become the rhetoric in your mind, then you have to stop and ask yourself, how likely is it that every single human I meet hates me? Like, that's just not even likely. And what happens is that has become like a stronghold thought. And then once you have a stronghold thought like that, what you do is you only look at the evidence that backs up that thought. So I will see the person who's rolled their eyes at me, even if it wasn't even at me, and that's evidence that backs up the thought. Say everybody does hate me, but I will have missed the person who smiled at me when I walked in, or the person who wanted to sit beside me. And so you need to start interrogating your thoughts and not just looking for the evidence that backs that thought up, but be brave enough to look at the evidence that doesn't back the thought up, the contradictory evidence. So I think interrogating your thoughts is a huge way forward to you winning the battlefield of your mind, because truth is central to getting rid of fear and anxiety for me.
Brilliant. So good. Thank you. Davey, have you any tips for people that'll help them win this battle of the mind?
This sounds absolutely nuts, okay? But one of the things that always worked for me was, you call it stinking thinking. Like Charlotte says there, you go off in one and you think the stupidest things in the world. One of the things that worked for me, and it may not work for everybody, and it sounds absolutely crazy, I used to think of a green elephant, right? And when I thought of a green elephant in my head, and that sounds nuts, it sort of deflected my attention from what I was thinking. It was like you can look at something that's absolutely ludicrous, think about it, and it sort of deflected your attention away. I know it's not some great spiritual greatness there, but it worked for me. My motto in it all, too, my motto always was, I'm getting out of this. Whatever it takes, I'm getting out of this. And that was a part of for me, in the thinking, because it is the thinking that really pulls you down, and a thought just starts and it spirals and spirals and spirals, and it just wipes you out in the end. So if you can deflect it in whatever way, and for me that was the way I did it, so it worked for me.
Okay, thank you, Davey. Thank you. So there's lots of people from different backgrounds, I'm sure, watching along with us tonight, and some will have a firm faith in Jesus, some might be struggling. And there may be some who don't have a faith in Jesus at all. In fact, they're just watching because they're really reaching to just get some sort of help because of what they're walking through. So wherever people are coming from, here's my question to both of you. We're under the assumption, we've been talking, the Christians aren't, this stuff hits Christians as much as it hits anybody else. Yeah. That we walk through mental illness, fear, anxiety, all of that stuff. Even Christians get that too and walk through that and journey through that. But here's my question. What difference does God make in the midst of the journey for each one of you? And go for Davey and then Charlotte.
I would say everything, to be honest. God makes all the difference in the world. For me personally, I actually struggle to know how people survive without God. I mean, life's hard enough. But the fact that you can go to someone who isn't going to judge you, isn't going to question you, isn't going to sort of, it's like Charlotte said, when Edwin came and he listened, and he maybe didn't have the answers, God has the answers, but someone to go to and to hide in, that's, for me, my faith in God really pulled me through. I don't actually think I'd be here today if I hadn't that faith in God, if I didn't have that idea that, God's got this, no matter what the circumstances are. And that was a truth that I could see in the Word of God, wrote in the Word of God in black and white, that God's for me, that God will never leave me or forsake me, that God will pull me through. So even in the midst, when I was holding on to my fingernails, I knew that God still had my life, because I'd given my life to Him. He was my Father and He loved me. And for me, God was, I would have to say, He was everything. I got to know God probably more in my anxiety and my depression than I've ever got before, because it was just Him and me. My wife, God love her, she did everything for me. My family were brilliant. People were good to me. But I felt, even in the midst of all that, it was just me and God. And God put me through major league. And I would encourage anyone just to turn to God, and He'll pull you through.
Yeah, I would echo everything Davey said. I think there's a verse in the Bible in 1 John 4:18 says, perfect love casts out fear. And that's really interesting to me, because I have a lot of people in my life who love me, a lot of really good humans who love me. But good as they are, they're not perfect. And because there's fractures in the humans that love us, and there's still fear in that love. So, for example, whenever I first got married, I'm married to this incredible man, like he's an absolute legend, the best of the best. But see, those first couple of years of marriage, I just spent them so afraid that he would leave me, because sometimes people do, because there's betrayal in that kind of love. Sometimes there's selfishness in love. And even if people are really good, eventually they die and they leave you, and the love is fractured. And so even human love, there's so much capacity for loss in it that you end up afraid anyway. It's just not stable enough. And I think that a lot of fear is built in in this fear of loss. Like, I'm afraid of, what if I lose my business? What if I lose my reputation? What if I lose my finances? What if I lose my best friend? What if I lose? And fear is in this built-in sense of loss. And so we're given this idea that perfect love is the antidote, and the only one who can give that to us is God, because he is completely perfect, and his love is completely perfect. There's no loss in it. Like, he will never betray us. He will never leave us. He will never abandon us. He will never die. You know, our relationship with him will never be fractured or broken at any stage. And no matter what I lose, I can lose everything in life. Like, I can lose my home. I can lose my family. I can lose my reputation. I can lose my wealth. I can lose my health. I can lose everything. I can even lose my very life, as we all will someday, and walk through the doorway of death. But even when I walk through the doorway of death, I walk into love, because his love is at the other side of death. It's even there. You know, there's no place I can go where I am separated from the love of God. And that is so stabilizing, to know that no matter what happens to me in life, like, he's still going to love me, like, absolutely adore the life out of me. And that pushes fear, you know, out of my life constantly. That's the rock that I run back to. Is like, Charlotte, even if the worst happens today, you go to bed tonight completely, totally, utterly loved by a God who's going nowhere. And that's enough for me to come through fear. So I honestly, like, I just feel like if people could understand the deep love that God has for them in the middle of their fear and in the middle of their anxiety, it would be so healing, like, so super healing. So I hope that people discover that who haven't yet.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys. And time has really been our enemy today. We're almost at a close. But what I would love us to do is just take a few extra moments. And I'm just so aware that there are people who will be watching this right now who are going through exactly the things that you've talked about. There's fear, there's anxiety, there's the struggle, and there's the journey. And again, as we say, there's people of faith, there are people who are struggling in their faith, and there are people who are journeying towards faith and wondering what it's all about. But what we would love to do right now is to have Davy and Charlotte pray. And they're going to pray for those of you who maybe are on that journey of struggling. And some of you will be totally familiar with this. You'll know to close your eyes and just know the presence of Jesus. And some of you, this is totally new to you. So why don't you, where you are as the guys pray, why don't you open your heart towards God? Why don't you, maybe for the first time, just open your heart up and just say, God, if you're there, can you come and be that person that's in the room with me and help me? I'm going to ask the guys to pray. And I would encourage you to close your eyes, not because there's anything spiritual about that, but it helps us to focus on what we're really saying. So go for it, guys. Maybe, Davy, you'll pray first, and then Charlotte, would you pray? Thank you, guys.
Amen. Lord, we just come to you, and we thank you that you do love us, that you care about us, that you love people. And Lord, you so loved the world that you gave your son to die for them. And Lord, your love is immeasurable. And Lord, I pray for people who are going through, Lord, even some of the things we've talked to tonight, and they don't know where to turn. Lord, I pray that you will just reach down, Lord, and touch their hearts, and that they'll find you. And Lord, your love will set them free from their fear and their anxieties. Pray, Lord, that people will realize that you're a God that's not against things, but you're a God that's for things. You're for people. And Lord, help people in their bedrooms, in their living rooms, wherever they are watching this, to just reach out and to just, Lord, just to touch them, touch their hearts, touch their lives, Lord, and show yourself to them. Reveal yourself to them, Lord, and set them free, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen.
Lord, we thank you that you're not far away. And even when we don't realize it, like, you're so close. And I thank you that everybody watching this right now, you're like right beside them. You're not a million miles away. And so I pray for like a revelation of that in their lives, that right now, wherever they're sitting, they would just be so aware that you are with them. And I pray that you would still their troubled soul, that you would speak peace to troubled spirits. I pray that, Father, you would restore sleep to those who have struggled to sleep, that you would restore clarity to those who've been really confused. I pray, Father, that you would help people to be brave enough to ask for help when they need it. And I pray you would send the right people along to help them. But most of all, Father, I pray they would know your deep, deep love. I pray that it would just surround them, that they would be so aware in the next days and weeks of the deep, deep love of Father God for them. And I pray that that love would just revolutionize and change their lives. And I pray, Father, that in a few years' time, when they look back, they'll be so amazed at what you've done, like so amazed at how far you've brought them and the person that you have developed in them. Father, we leave them in your hands and in your care because we know that you really care about them. In your name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Davy and Charlotte. We really appreciate your time and your thoughts and your experience just speaking into this. And thank you for everybody who's joined with us. And we'd encourage you, if this has blessed you, to share this on your Facebook page, to connect with somebody. Maybe you know someone who's going through a bit of a time, and this would be really helpful for them. So please do feel free to share it and get it wide and help as many people as we possibly can. Also, just that little announcement that we made earlier, that Words of Hope is just taking a slight change, and really this tonight has been a launch pad into what we're going to do from the 8th of June, Monday the 8th of June, for the next 4 Mondays within June. We're going to be looking at Words of Hope, and they're going to be mental health conversations. And our first one is going to be on stress. And many people know that stress is kind of the door that is the opening for many other things that happen within our lives. So we're going to be looking at that. If you have questions that you would like put to the panel on that particular night, please do get in touch with us. Email to info@elimchurchireland.com, or get in touch over Facebook or one of our social media platforms, and we'll do our best. Do that by Wednesday, and we'll do our best to put those and as many of those questions to the panel. Also then, if you have any questions in regards of faith or in regards of what we've talked about tonight, please don't hesitate to get in touch. Again, info@elimchurchireland.com, and we will get back to you. We will respond to that. Again, there are further resources available on www.elimchurchireland.com/words of hope, and we would love to hear from you and connect with you. But for now, thanks for being part of Words of Hope, and we'll hopefully connect again with you soon. God bless.